All right. Hello and welcome to another episode of Project Purple podcast / Project Purple Sports Special Edition, end of the school year, top 10 reveal. Zach, super excited. We're here in the podcast studio. I've got my co-host with Project Purple Sports, Zach Gerstner. Welcome, Zach.
Thank you, Dino. Thank you for having me. This will be a fun episode we got planned.
And I think this is the second time you've been on the Project Purple podcast. If this airs, well, this will air. Are we airing this on the Project Purple podcast, or are we airing it on Project Purple Sports?
I think we can do both, so we can put it on sports as well as
a special episode. All right, Zach. So this is number 2 for you. You're quickly climbing the ranks of repeat guests here, but we're excited. You know, this year was a special year. We were able to do some sports broadcasting, something new that we've never done here at Project Purple. Really excited to get out into our local community here in Seymour, Connecticut, and give the student athletes and the community an opportunity to watch sports pretty much from the start of 2024. Well, I think we started like in 2024. We didn't do anything in the early season during that basketball season. It was kind of midway through the season. We kind of realized like we had this opportunity here with Seymour High School sports and really kind of evolved and kind of grew and got kind of cool towards the end of the year. And this is kind of our wrap up for the season, or for the school year, I should say. And we've got a great top 10 that you and the team put together to kind of show our audience here. So super excited to be here.
Yeah, no, it'll be great. And wrap up as well as kickoff. I mean,
yeah, we'll be kicking off. Yeah, so you just kind of threw out a spoiler there, Zach. Super excited that we'll be back with Seymour Sports and quite possibly some other high schools here in Connecticut doing some live streaming and broadcasting. You know, this idea really, you take the credit for this, Zach, because you really kind of championed this effort. I know it was kind of an idea we had on the board. We had the equipment. We had some resources. I think there was a golden opportunity. And I think for us here at Project Purple, it's just a way to give back to the community and also help us raise awareness, because we do know like so many people are impacted by pancreatic cancer, especially here in the state of Connecticut. And we're super excited. We both love sports, right? I know we're both partial to basketball, but you know, we're looking forward to 2024, 25 of kind of doing a full year of Project Purple Sports, multiple schools as we have kind of hinted to. So super excited. So yeah, to your point, this is like the end of 23, 24, which we really didn't have anything for 23, but more 24, and then a kickoff for 24, 25.
Yeah, and it'll be exciting. I mean, I know we've got a lot of, now that we have the groundwork done, we have the opportunity to take it and turn it into something even bigger. So I'm excited for that. And, you know, as you mentioned, the basketball games, they were great. Not that all the sports games weren't great, but as we played basketball, it was great. And there was a great Seymour team last year, so it was exciting to watch.
Yeah, and we had, you know, and we had a nice little run with being able to this year to do both playoffs for both basketball and softball, which we're going to talk about here in a second, which was really cool. I think that was, you know, one of the really cool things. You know, when we started this, we really didn't know what was going to happen, where we were going to end up, and to be able to do some playoff games for both sports was just really, really cool, and probably one of the most enjoyable things for me, because those games were pretty competitive, as we will see here in our top 10. Both sides of that made the top 10, both in basketball and softball. So I think that's a great segue into our top 10, Zach. So we've got a top 10 that we've put together here with some clips. So our first top 10 is outgoing senior for boys basketball, Mike Rossetti.
To Joey Carfiello to Rossetti, back to Carfiello. Another 2 for 55-24 Seymour. Carfiello's been the whole offense. Rossetti again, and Zach, you know, usually 3 twos. Yeah, you can't let that play go into the middle there. Again, Ansonia down 51-24 here. Wide open is Joey Carfiello. What a pass by Mike Rossetti.
So Mike Rossetti, who, you know, I've been fortunate to see this kid play for a couple years since my son played at a rival high school and it's the same school year. So I got to see a lot of Mike Rossetti over the years. And, just to see this kid really develop through the last 3 years that my son was involved in a rival high school was just really cool. I know we kind of nicknamed him Bob Cousy.
Yeah.
It seemed like during the season, he would kind of be the catalyst to get the defensive going in terms of intensity and also, just facilitate the offense as that point guard, point general, as you can say, on the court. So love seeing Mike make the top 10. And he also, I think for Seymour, was kind of the heart of the team, taking many charges, right? During many of the games. I think he actually wore those padded shorts, right?
Oh, really?
I think
know.
someone said he had like padded shorts or he had like those wide receiver pads. He is a football player. He was a hell of a football player, all-state football player. But he had like pads that he would wear just because of the contact that he would take.
I know. I remember it would be like every third quarter, right in the beginning, it would be Mike Rossetti for the first 10 minutes of that second half. And it was like, oh, you would look to me and you'd be like, guess who it is again?
Mike Rossetti.
Yeah, exactly.
So coming in at number 10 is Mike Rossetti, a.k.a. Bob Cousy. So let's get to the next on our list here, number 9, Zach.
Yeah, we got Joey Carfiello and his Slamma Jamma. There's Rossetti there, pokes it free. Hey! Joey Carfiello.
So awesome, Zach. Like we watched that video again, and being there live is so much different. I don't think we expected that from Joey this year.
No.
To get up that high, and when he pulled that one off in that game, you could see in that video the bench just explode, and that was just a cool moment. And here in Connecticut, you don't get many dunks, especially in the NVL. I think basketball, we don't have the guys that are like, 6'6", 6'8", 6'9", and when you see like a 6'1" kid get up there and throw it down, it gets pretty exciting.
Yeah, we did see a couple though.
We saw. Not many, though.
Yeah, not many.
Not many. We didn't see it every game. We saw a handful of games we could probably count on one finger, or one hand, I should say.
Yeah, and actually one of them, I think we saw 2 dunks.
Correct.
Quan Ellis and then Barge for
Ansonia.
Ansonia,
yeah.
Yeah.
So taking us to number 8, which, was really exciting. I know we hinted to this in the beginning, though, the CCAC state basketball games that we were fortunate to actually live stream the first 2 rounds of the CIAC playoffs for the boys basketball. So we don't have any video there,
there's
a ton of video, but really exciting. That was something I think, again, as I mentioned in the beginning, not knowing going into this, like that we would have that opportunity and to be able to actually, I think there just was that intensity knowing that, hey, like the next game or this game is your last potentially, right? Because of the way the state playoffs work. It's like you win, you move on, you lose, you go home. And, just to have maybe for us to be on our A games, like we don't get another game, right? And also knowing that this is going to eventually be our last game as we broadcast that. So that was something really cool for us. I think the other thing too, in the States, you get teams from out of the area, and Seymour was fortunate. They played 2 teams really not even fairly close. I mean, the 2 home games that they had Fitch and they had the other team from East Windsor, I think it was. So both teams, I think Fitch was like almost a 2-hour ride. And East Windsor was also about like a 45 to an hour and 20, I think, depending on traffic, up north. So really cool to get 2 teams in that are not from this area. And again, when we talk about what we're doing here with Project Purple Sports and spreading awareness and bringing other people into the community here locally, it was a really cool opportunity for us to do that.
Yeah, it was great. And I remember it was just very high level basketball. You get into the States, and as you mentioned, it's win or go home. And you saw that in the Fitch game. Like, there's no clips because there's 2 games and they're each over 2 hours. And there was so much jam packed that I was like, well, if I don't include this, then what about this and this? And I figured it would be a better discussion point, as well as, maybe you guys can comment your favorite CIAC basketball clip moments or whatever, and we can potentially do something from there. But it was just a good experience. I remember you see like the emotion, like we're going to get to the main clip that we got from that. But
yeah,
you
that's a
just
little bit
see-
later in the countdown.
you
We don't want to
just
give it
see-
away.
no,
but-
no. You just see all the emotion in the players, though, and it's like for most of them, or some of them, it's your last time ever putting on a jersey, and it was great to kind of be able to be there and capture all that raw emotion.
Yeah, and I think I'll end this on for this segment for this number I should say on this note. I mean I think to your point is like so powerful, because we did see a different level of intensity, I guess you would say, during those two games from both teams, right? Knowing that this is your last game of the season potentially, right? And I think when it's kind of interesting when you see that kind of pressure in sports, like some players step up and some players don't, and the ones that do kind of move on and play another day.
Exactly.
Moving on to number 7 here, again staying in the same vein here of doing extra games, was this NVL streaming of softball. Was just really excited to have the opportunity to stream the NVL semifinals for softball, which was really cool. And again, similar to the CIAC, we don't have full clips because we had 2 games that we did, 4 teams. And Zach, I think the coolest thing for me was, again, I go back to this community piece. We had done Naugatuck and Seymour at Seymour, and then we had Watertown, Woodland, which were 2 teams that we did not see. I think the other piece for me personally, softball is really foreign to this extent that it was kind of a learning curve, and I'm a big growth guy, and so I think it was kind of cool for us to kind of learn a bit from that. But was cool to bring our own style that you and I have to softball, because I heard a couple comments. Many of the people watching and listening were actually very complimentary of our style, bringing that to softball, which was more of like a basketball style. So I like to use the term all sports, I guess. But I think that was just really cool. I mean, for those that don't know, Connecticut softball is pretty big. Especially in this area, you had Seymour, which has had this historic run, Woodland, which has now hindsight is easy now because the state championships are over, but they ended up winning their 3rd straight state championship in Class M. So the team that eventually they ended up losing in the finals to Watertown, but they ended up going to states and running the table. So, and then you had Naugatuck and Watertown, which, Watertown had a Division II pitcher who was going Division II to play at Adelphi. Very strong. She was probably one of the top players in the division. And then Naugatuck, who's got, Aaron Bombray, which we're going to talk about, here soon, going Division I to Quinnipiac, your alma mater. So you had a lot of talent on the field for those 4 teams. And again, in this area, especially in the NVL, Seymour, Woodland, Naugatuck have pretty much dominated the NVL, other than Oxford, which didn't make the semifinals, but another team that's kind of been dominant if you look over the last 10 to 15 years in women's softball here in the league. So, and you look at state-wise, those teams have been up there, in state rankings. So talent-wise, I mean, that day, I think when we had all 4 teams, we probably had close to, I just saw one of the kids from Seymour just got picked up by Albertus Magnus. I mean, you probably had anywhere that the pitcher for Woodlands going Division I to UMass Lowell. We mentioned Bombray, we mentioned the girl from Watertown. You probably had close to 6 or 7 women playing collegiately next year or within the next 2 years, potentially.
Yeah, I would also say that, I mean, I don't know how many, but I feel like most of the rosters fielded at least 5 all NVL players.
Correct,
and
yeah.
so you just, even if they weren't in the point where they had their own, I guess, scholarship or position to go to the next level, the talent was still there. And
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, I mean, the pitching was outstanding. We saw Seymour and Woodland have a great pitching battle. Unfortunately, Seymour couldn't get their bats going, which is why they lost to Woodland. And then you had Watertown and Naugatuck, and then I just remember that last at bat, it was Bombery going against Watertown's pitcher, who I don't remember her name, but she was the Adelphi.
Yeah.
And it was like we were talking, like, why wouldn't you just walk her, But I guess
She pitched to her.
she's at I guess the point where it's like I'm gonna have to face these batters anyways. I'm gonna assert my dominance and show that I'm better. So it was very high level, and it was a long stream, which we're gonna learn from some of the outside issues that we had there. But it was a good day.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree with you. I mean, the level of play again. We go back to like what we saw in the basketball, um, state games. Is like, yeah, you do lose, you go home, but you do get states, right? But here you're playing for that chip, right, for the league chip, which has become a big deal. But you had this high level of play of players that were all league and potentially at that next level. And the other thing, which I think is a little bit different than maybe some of the other sports, is you had this huge youth movement in softball. There are a lot of players between those two games and those four teams that were freshmen and sophomores. So potentially we will continue to see kind of these teams up in that upper echelon potentially, just because of the youth. And again, playing at that high level and being that young is really cool and really special. So excited, to have them come in at number 7 here with the NVL streaming of the semifinals. So we're going to move to number 6, which was a cool event, which was for the first couple games, and I know for the first part of the season, the Seymour basketball teams were playing at the middle school, which was a bigger gym, but the little bit not accustomed to playing in a big gym because their high school is a tighter court. They kind of, yeah.
That's an understatement.
It's an
Tighter
understatement.
court.
But the first game back in the main gym was also a big game. It was versus Ansonia, which was a rivalry game. And I remember when we looked at the standings at the time, they were kind of jockeying for that 5th, 6th spot. Seymour eventually did leap, right, and made it into that 4 spot. But, that game had a lot of things on the line. Not only was it the first game back in the new floor, they had a new gym floor put in because they had a water leak late last season or late at the end of the school year last year. A pipe burst and they had to redo the whole floor. So not only was it the first game back in the high school gym, but also it was a big rivalry.
It was, and that's it.
So again, long game. We don't have a clip of anything, but I remember that game very well because it was our first game in the new gym. We were a little stressed because we didn't have the space that we had in the middle school with the bleachers. It was a little warm, right? It was a lot warmer. But they blew them out. Let's be honest.
Oh yeah, I was just about to say. I mean, I think at the end of the first half, it was like I think almost a 30-point lead.
Yeah.
We at one point we were watching if they were going to go break the century mark. I know you said in the stream, and then it kind of like got to the point where you saw Ansonia make the subs and kind of wave that white flag a little bit. So we didn't see that, but then we got to see Seymour put up, I think it was almost 90 points and only allow 50.
Yeah. Yeah. And Zach, I think too, the other thing that, we saw too with Seymour, that was kind of like a turning point for them a little bit in the season, right? Because we saw after that, they had a good start to the season. They hit their Waterbury stride, which is, them playing the Waterbury teams, and they lost a couple games. And then they get back into league play and play some of the teams that are in their division. And that Ansonia team was a very well-coached team. Coach there does a very good job. They had a lot of talent, but Seymour just jumped on them that night and was really able to put them away really fast. But I feel that was kind of a turning point. And as we look at the season, they kind of ran off a bunch of games after that, played really well. They kind of get into their stride. The other thing too, with some of the players, as we know, play multiple sports. So you start to get that football rust, that soccer rust off, and now you get into that basketball rhythm, and that basketball, starts to take over in terms of just the muscle memory, and you start to see players play at a different level. And I think we saw that from some of the players on the team, kind of like really buying in to Coach Carfiello and the system that they had. And then they went on that great run and, which brought them into the NVLs and then into the state tournament, which we'll talk about here shortly.
Yeah, I agree. And then I just think the biggest thing is in a gym like that, a lot of people, I know I didn't like playing in small gyms like that when I played basketball. It's just a loud, close, atmosphere, and you have no space. And we remember we were sitting there, and then you just heard the Seymour fans. They would let people have it. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a lot, and just atmosphere wise, if you're a team coming in there, at least the middle school gym, you had more space, you're away from
Yeah.
people, you could kind of get into some sort of rhythm and get comfortable. But especially with Seymour's press, that's when we really start to see that take off defensively. I mean, I think there was a stretch where Ansonia didn't get the ball over half court. It's like
Yeah.
6-7 times.
Yeah. Yeah. The size of that court really has been a competitive advantage for Seymour. And I think that's one of the things that they really, from talking to Coach Carfield and some of the players, I know we would talk to them, before some of their games, something that they really were missing out playing at the middle school, as great as they like playing at the middle school because of the things that you mentioned. It's a little bit wider. They can get more fans in at the middle school. The high school has a lot of advantages to the style that they play, right? So we're excited. We're going to be back there next year, hopefully, for many games in the basketball season, and it's going to be rocking, I'm sure, because they've got a lot of players coming back. So let's move on to number 5, which is Jaquan Ellis, the back-to-back plays, and this actually, I believe, comes from that Ansonia game. So Jaquan Ellis transferred in to Seymour. This was his first year playing as a senior for Seymour basketball, but this was a great transition. He had back-to-back plays with a shake and bake, and then he comes back. Someone got a steal. I think is one of the Carfiellos, throws it up ahead for a dunk. Like we said before, one of the few dunks that we saw in the season. But
game too,
yeah,
him and
yeah,
Barge.
yeah, him and Barge. So let's roll that play for number 5, Jaquan Ellis.
It's so passive.
Oh.
Ellis with a move.
Hey! Oh, man.
Quick pull there by Jaquan Ellis.
I'll tell you what, I might send that to SportsCenter Top 10. Jesus. Jaquan Ellis. Put him on skates there.
Barge pops, pulls. Ellis
Get
here.
up there!
Zach, I stand corrected. I think that was Shane White Jr. with the steal off the rebound that threw it up ahead for Jaquan Ellis for the throwdown. So, yeah, that was a great game. Like we said, I mean, it came in at number 6, and then we followed up with number 5. But Ellis, we saw him play a lot this year, and he was one of those kids on the team that just there was like that. We call it like the sixth sense, but just basketball sense, I think I would call it. He was just a pure basketball player and had very good basketball instincts. And you could see in just that series there, like between the shake and bake, to get himself open, to create space, and then just the athleticism to get down the court and throw it down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and he was always a player that he was good with the ball, but he was also good without the ball. And I think that's what made him so valuable to Seymour, is because you had a lot of on-ball scorers and people who kind of wanted the ball to kind of be at their best. So, when Jaquan Ellis was on, he could just slide to the corner, catch, shoot a 3. He didn't need the ball. And defensively, he would always guard the best player on the other team. Him and Mike Rossetti would switch off. So he was doing a lot for Seymour in kind of a limited touches role.
Yeah, and I think, unfortunately, he's going to be missed a lot next year for Seymour, because he was one of those guys, to your point, defensively. And I also thought, like, we talk about this often, and you just kind of reiterate that, like, he doesn't need the ball to be effective, but he also doesn't need the ball to score, if that makes sense, right? Like, there's players that need to have that ball in their hand to score, to be effective, to have an impact. Ellis is the complete opposite. He didn't need the ball in his hands. Like, he'd be out in the court and he'd still be effective, or just find ways to score without actually having the ball in the hand all the time. And that's something that I think was invaluable for Coach Carfiello this year, especially with the run that those guys made. And, it's a testament to his hard work, because I know he's a great kid. We've seen him. He came up to us at the NBL championship, and had a lot of nice words to say. And he's coming up again. We'll just tease that in our top 10. So moving on to number 4, going back to softball here, and Naugatuck's own Aaron Bombre with the home run game, which was just epic, Zach. 2 at-bats, 2 bombs. I mean, they were bombs.
Yeah, I mean, it got to the point where we were sitting there after, like, the first one we were like, okay, like that's, and then she did it again, and they got to the point where we just kept talking about like, we're like, well, do you pitch to her? Or do you not pitch to her? Because no one else has really hurt you except for Bombery.
Yeah, and she had all the RBIs that one
She
game,
did.
but like she hit 2 bombs and they were bombs, folks. We probably have them here, but I mean, both balls cleared center field by like, I think the first one was maybe like 25 feet, and then the second one was about 50 feet, from the fence. So they were just missiles shot out of the cannon, I guess you would say. Like it was just very impressive. Again, that was the first time of us seeing her.
Yeah.
I mean, she's physically intimidating. She's very athletic, big girl. Compared to some of the other girls on both teams. So she has that physical stature, but man, she makes contact with that ball. It's just unbelievable. I think I read a stat like she only had like I think like 39 at bats or something like that. Crazy. Like she had like 100 plus at bats, but like she got walked so many times that she only had 39 opportunities to hit the ball, and her batting average was like so high because of that, like something like 600 or something crazy
and
like
I
that.
think she was. I remember. I think she was leading the NVL in home runs, but
Yeah.
she got to hit a third
Yeah,
of the
a
time
third of
too,
the
so
time.
it's
So
like,
imagine, so it's pretty wild. But so great softball player, and she comes in at number 4 with those 2 home runs in that Seymour Naugatuck game.
Swings. That's hit hard.
That is.
Over the fence. Wow.
That's a
Naugatuck comes up 3-0. Bombre with a bomb. 3-run home run. Again, gets under it. Center fielder going back off the top of the fence. Wow. Zach, I'm speechless.
All right, Zach, I stand corrected. That one hit the fence, but we did see her hit a home run in the MVL tournament that cleared the fence by like 50 yards. So, when you got confused there, but yeah, hell of a player. She's going to your alma mater next year, Quinnipiac, to play softball, Division One. So it'll be exciting to see, how she develops. But she can hit the ball really, really far.
yeah, and I mean even defensively too. She had a strong arm over there at shortstop.
Yeah. Very, very, very impressive player. So moving on to number 3, we're staying in the softball world here with Seymour, and this comes from our first game that we did against Oxford. Now, again, setting this up as going into that game, I think Seymour and Oxford, both had a similar record, both coming off like their last 10. I just remember from doing the numbers, like Seymour was 9-1. I think Oxford was like 8-2. Again, big rivalry. Oxford has won the NVL tournament. They've had success in the state tournament. Young team. A lot of these kids play together on travel. There's a lot of coaching that goes on off season that these kids like kind of stay with the same coach, hitting coach, pitching coach. This was a big rivalry game. There was a lot of intensity that night. It was packed. We were kind of like, and also this was our first game. But that Seymour defense, especially the infielders, were just like lights out that night.
Yeah, I mean that middle infield, I think it was Chernak, and then
I'm drawing a blank here, Zach, but
Taylor Garano.
Garano and Chernak,
those two at middle infield, it was very dominant. I don't think a ball got through at all. I know it was I think you called it like the curtain of defense.
The iron curtain of defense. Yeah, those two, shortstop, second base, they're also sophomores or juniors. They're young, so we'll see them next year. But yeah, super impressed. Our first game, I mean, they did not. I mean, there were a lot of balls hit up the middle, and a lot of hard hit balls up the middle, and they did phenomenal. So that interior defense for Seymour softball was fantastic. And for the games that we did, when they played like that, they were lights out. The games that we did when they didn't play, when that infield, when we saw kind of some miscues, some balls get through, it was a different story. So coming in at number 3 is the infield of Seymour softball. The last game for Oxford, they won big.
Good play there by the third baseman.
Barton Wheels hit up the middle. It looks like they can get 2. Did they get her? They got 2.
Yeah.
They got 2. Runner. Oxford. Hard hit.
Ropes one. Still got to play there. Got it. Wow.
And Zach, Taylor Garano was our first MVP or DBAT player of the game, I should say, not MVP, but our DBAT player of the game for just her stellar effort that night on the diamond.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last one there on the clip, it was off of the third baseman, and then Carano had to readjust, pick it up, and then throw across her body to get the third out of that inning. So it was very impressive performance by her, but not just her, the entire Seymour. I would even say their defense in general. I don't remember how many runs they gave up to Oxford.
I don't think
But
it was many. Yeah,
I think it was to the point where we thought maybe is Oxford going to get mercied.
yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, but I mean, they were lights out, and then so was, I'm drawing a blank on the pitcher's name, but she was lights out the entire season. And
Skylar
even
Barton.
that game, yeah, even that
Yeah,
game.
she pitched very well. Yeah, so their defense was stellar from what we saw, in the early part and in the games that they won. And I think again, as we said before, that was kind of the difference maker, right? Like defense, as we say, wins championships. All right, man. Moving on to number 2. So we're gonna shift gears here to baseball. So before we start this, I just want to say we are not beating up on Ansonia because this was an Ansonia game. They both their basketball very impressive, great coaching. Baseball super impressive. That pitcher that they've got, McDougal, pitched a hell of a game. But that was our first baseball venture. We learned a lot that game. Being outside, I think we're gonna do our not top 10, and some people from that game will make the not top 10. But we're also highlighting our number 2 here, which was Ben Fetzko, who had the walk off. So Seymour, just to tee it up here for the people that didn't watch it, Seymour was down the whole game. They just really weren't hitting. I mean, McDougal pitched a hell of a game. He got out of a couple jams of just walking a couple batters. There were a couple errors, and then they take him out, and I don't know if it was a pitch count or what the deal was. They put in McDougal's a sophomore. They put in the freshman, who's a hell of a player. He was great in out in center field and at the plate hitting for Ansonia. And then Seymour just makes this historic comeback, and Ben Fetzko gets the walk off to win the game.
He got to reap the benefits of just what was a hit after hit after hit after hit. I mean,
bottom of the 6th inning.
I think it was started by Kobe Ruggiero.
Hit a bomb. He hit that bomb, and then it just started the kind of the catalyst to just get the team going, which we did not see for the previous 5 innings. But McDougal pitched a hell of a game and probably should have gotten the win. And unfortunately, Ansonia, young team, they've got a lot of talent, and they're super young. And Seymour was able to come back at home and get the W. So let's give you number 2, Ben Fetzko's walk-off hit to win it for Seymour Ansonia. Bottom of the 7th here for Seymour.
What I don't like here is there's one out. Your outfield should be in. That should be the game.
Fly ball to left. McDougal over his head.
And there's a walk-off for Ben Fetzko.
Wow. You can see that was a hard hit ball down into left. And, Seymour baseball, super young, excited to be able to offer the community baseball as well. And some of the kids that played basketball also played baseball. So it was good to see some of those guys again in another sport. But, both those teams, I think next year you'll probably see at the top of the standings, given, Woodland did dominate this year baseball. We didn't get a chance to see them play, but they did win the state championship. But senior-laden team, their top 2 starters are seniors, so they're off. So, Seymour has an opportunity now next year, as does Ansonia with McDougal. He's a hell of a player if he stays. Connecticut, there's this thing where these kids kind of tend to get gobbled up by the prep schools. But hopefully he'll still be an Ansonia Charger, and we'll look forward to seeing those 2 teams battle again next year, which should be a super competitive game.
Yeah, it should be. And just to that point, I mean, if McDougal's on the mound next year, Ansonia's going to be in any game that they play.
Yeah, and Seymour's got a lot coming back as well, so should be fun to see how both those programs develop. And great walk off there by Fetzko. I know we're showing highlights here, but that game was it was like slow and go, and then like that 6th inning came, Zach, and it was like, oh my God, what's going on here? Like it's like basketball. It was like really cool to have that, but it was just an awesome way to end that game with that walk off, just super dramatic. So moving on to number 1, and I know we hinted to this. Our number 1 for the season, for the whole 2024 sports season, is the Jaquan Ellis game winner in the second round of the state playoffs. Now, we're going to play this clip. I just want to preface this because I am on the hot mic saying, do not shoot a 3. Do not shoot a 3. Go for the 2. So Seymour is down. They only need a 2 to tie it, right?
Yeah, because they had just missed one of the free throws.
Free throw shooter for Fitch, which, just let's back it up even further. Seymour plays Fitch. I think it was like a 5-8. What was the matchup? It was like, Fitch was this great team from New London, had a couple of injuries. So a couple of the players didn't play the whole season. I think Fitch would have been rated higher. They play in a hell of a league, though.
Yeah.
When you look at leagues throughout the state, especially for basketball, they play in a power-packed league. They've got New London, E.O. Smith. You've got some teams, and Groton's in that area. I mean, so they had a hell of a team, and hats off to that team. Again, young team. They started 2 sophomores as point guard, shooting guard. And then, the 6th man who came off the bench is a junior, but didn't play in the first half. We don't know what happened there. There might have been something going on. If that kid had played the whole game, I think we may have seen a different outcome.
Yeah.
But hindsight's easy, right? It's 2020. Big guy in the middle who Seymour, I thought, was going to have some issues with because super live. He was super active. But the point guard and the shooting guard, hell of players for Fitch, man. Both kids averaged close to 20 a game during the regular season, so we knew it was going to be this high-scoring game. Seymour seemed to, the game started off, it was close, then Fitch went up, 15, 20?
At like halftime. It was
Seymour rallied back, and then we got into this back and forth, and Fitch really couldn't find an answer for the Seymour. I don't know, maybe if it was inexperience, maybe by that Fitch backcourt. I mean, you got 2 very young kids. But so to tee this up, Fitch gets fouled, that the shooting guard gets fouled, or the point guard gets fouled. He's got a 2-shot free throw going in, makes 1, misses the second. And again, Seymour just needs 2 to tie it. I said, hey, just take the 2. Go to overtime and then just roll the dice, right?
You didn't just tell him. You were screaming.
I was screaming, just get the 2, get the 2, get the 2. Do not need a 3. Do not need a 3. And Jaquan Ellis made me look really bad. So let's roll number 1. Jaquan Ellis's game winner in the second round of the CIAC state finals.
3. Do not go for 3. Just get the 2. Ellis with
Oh my God!
Ellis with a 3. Robinson gets it off.
Oh my God!
Jaquan.
Hell of a shot there by Jaquan Ellis. And Zach, I know we cut that clip a little bit early, but the rebound. But I was screaming, "Don't need a 3! Don't need a 3!" And he pulls from 3, makes me look really silly. But something that we just saw there on that replay, the Fitch player, the point guard, almost made that shot at the end, so the game is never done until that final buzzer goes off. But what a great game. I mean, that was, yes, Jaquan Ellis, game winner, makes that game really, really special. That was a great culmination of like the entire year of having a game like that go to that extent, like, second round of the state championship, and you have this like epic comeback. And then to end on that high note is just really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, because we had seen earlier in the season, Seymour had some issues winning and playing on that middle school court. I mean, St. Paul's comes to mind.
Yeah.
I think they were up by like 16 or something. They ended up blowing that one, which was a little bit of a different story in this game. But you had kind of seen them lack that, okay, we need to keep our foot on the gas, or let's find our way to claw ourselves back out of this one. And that was like a great game. I remember I was going home, and my mom had texted me during halftime of the stream and was like, "Oh, like it's a sad one. Like Seymour will get him next year." And I was like, I ended up calling her. I was like, "Did you watch the rest of the game?" She was like, "No, they were down 20." I was like, "Go back and watch the rest of the game." From that second half, I mean, it was just a completely different story.
Yeah, it really, really special. And again, as we look back on this, to have the ability to give this back to the community for those watching and listening was just really special, especially some of these highlights, right? And so, in closing, we do have a not top 10. I will say, doing top 10s is sometimes really, really hard because there was just so many cool moments. And we just want to thank everyone within the Seymour community that allowed us the opportunity, the administration there at the high school, the coaches, that came on after games, the players who accepted, the accolades, and so it's just really cool. And we're really looking forward to next year. So before we end this and talk a little bit about the people that give us the opportunity to do this, because we do have some sponsors that allow us the opportunity to do this here at Project Purple Sports, let's talk about this not top 10 list. And so I know we jokingly said through the year, like, hey, we've got these not top 10s. And I think one for me, and I'll ask you for yours and I'll give mine. But for me was, unfortunately, our mics, it's a live broadcast, and sometimes things get picked up. And I think when we were at basketball in the high school, we could hear people complaining. When we were at the baseball games, again, tight ears. We had, as we called it, Zach, the not top 10 was the bleacher officials, I guess we would say.
Or at-home fans, things of that nature.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing. And I just... we appreciate, how do we put this and not sound like total jerks? We appreciate the enthusiasm that people have for high school athletics, but we also have to be understanding and realize that, the officials, really, this is their part-time and they're there for the kids, and the kids are there to learn as well. So, the not top 10 that make that list, are those fans that, sometimes get on the hot mic, or you can hear them in the background screaming and yelling. I don't think we had much profanity this year. We heard it, but I don't think it got on. It got on the live stream, but sometimes you could hear people arguing calls or arguing. I think we had one time we had fans interacting with each other, getting a little heated in these rivalries, guys. It was high school sports here. But that would be my not top 10 that made the list.
I mean, I would say, just because I kind of am like putting everything together, is the worst part is when I get some sort of technical difficulty that I do not know how to fix. So this is a learning curve for us as well. I don't do a lot of like video production. I didn't go to school for that, but I kind of worked on figuring it out and putting it together. The most frustrating was, I want to say, that first softball game, because we had went up earlier that day, me and Dino, and we tested out the internet, everything. We got everything going, and we're like, okay, we'll be ready to roll. Got back, started the stream, and then it wasn't picking up the video from the camera to the computer. So I was like, I've never seen this before. I don't know what I'm doing. And then so it took us, I think, about 3 innings to finally get it going. And we missed some good softball in the first 3 innings. Yeah. We saw a nice ending play there. But, I mean, it was just that. And then also, I guess, during the longer streams outside, we had Mr. Roboto or that going on with the audio.
That's true. And then the NVL championship, we had to deal with the cold. So I think that's, that's great. You're not top 10, Zach, because this is a work in progress, and we appreciate the fans supporting us and dealing with the work in progress. And I guess we'll say this as we go to the next slide here. Our sponsors allow us the opportunity, so we do hope next year that we have less technical issues. And thanks to our sponsors, Zoe's Pizza, DBAT, and Hartford Healthcare, for allowing us the opportunity to do this, to be able to go out into the community, stream live sports, high school sports. And we're super excited. We'll probably have some enhancements in our equipment Thank God for some of the, I mean, not thank God, but, equipment does change from time to time. And, clearly with advances in technology, we'll continue to keep up with that. And, we look forward to next season, which will begin very soon, as to your point, and being able to offer more schools, different sports, and, hopefully grow as the channel grows. So, I just want to thank our sponsors for that opportunity in Hartford Healthcare, DBAT, and Zoe's Pizza for allowing us the opportunity to do this locally here around the Seymour area, and then hopefully, expanded throughout the state of Connecticut as we go into the 24-25 school year. So in closing, Zach, thanks, man. It's been great hosting a lot of games with you. I'm looking forward to next season. Summer's a great time for kids, watching, to develop their skills. There's a lot of AAU going on in all sports, right? Connecticut just passed a new rule this year. Well, it got passed this year, but now it has taken effect really right now, whereas coaches can be with their teams during the summer. So it'll be interesting to see development going into next year. As that is the first school year where coaches have had the opportunity here in Connecticut to actually be with their teams during the summer and coach them. There are restrictions in terms of timing, and so we'll see how that plays out in a lot of the high school sports next year. Maybe we'll see more development. Time will tell.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we say like, we're wrapping up, but by the time we wrap up in about a month or two, we'll be
getting going. We might actually, depending, just to tease it out there, we might be doing some sports previews, bringing some other people on. So just want to thank you guys for tuning in for the games that we have had, and we look forward to hopefully spreading more sports to Project Purple Sports from different communities. And thank you guys for helping us build branding and awareness for what we do here at Project Purple, which is a world without pancreatic cancer. So thanks, Zach, for being part of it. And thank you guys for watching and listening at home.
Thank you, Dino, for having me. And thank you all for tuning in.
That's a wrap of another episode of the Project Purple podcast. If you like what you saw or hear today, make sure to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure to subscribe to this channel. Feel free to share this episode. Until next time, please be safe.